dusty headlights and I can't see.
What toppings did that settle on? I think there was ham, green olives, feta cheese, and are there green peppers?
I feel the coals of the fire underneath my feet. I feel the coals of the fire underneath my feet. I'm looking for something. I'll pick you up when this road gets too rough. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog. I'll be your light when you're stuck in this night. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog.
Ooh. I thought it tasted better than that. Yeah.
You ain't a man if you choose my path. I get scared when I leave like I ain't coming back.
But there will be more pizza as my reward for doing my weekly reading.
Well, it's hard when they love you and you can't love them back. Well, it's hard when they love you and you can't love them back. I'm looking for something. I'll pick you up when this road gets too rough. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog. I'll be your light when you're stuck in this night. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog. Maybe that's some moonshine. Maybe I'm scared to know that I lie. Well, maybe there ain't much time.
Can you hear the guinea pigs singing along to the song? They really like this, apparently.
I'll pick you up when this road gets too rough. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog. I'll be your light when you're stuck in this night. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog.
That sounds great.
Your dog and I'll be your dog. I'll be your dog and I'll be your dog.
Welcome back. And yeah, your pasta bake sounds not dissimilar to the pizza that Matt ordered, just, put together in a slightly different form. But that sounds great. I have noticed that the YouTube studio does always show as if there are 0 viewers, which I know is not the case because 2 of you are talking to me. So, I'm never sure if I should offer a bit of a brief recap, although I don't think, I doubt there's anybody here who isn't at least somewhat familiar with the Animorphs book series. So I offer you a sneeze in lieu of a recap. Yeah, there may be others watching. I just don't really have a way to know. What I was going to mention, I noticed on the first video, Amelia had commented that this really is pretty dark. And yes, you may already be familiar with the reputation the Animorphs book series had for being surprisingly dark for a, mid-90s middle grade fiction book series. And you may not have thought much of that, so I do just want to reiterate that that's not a joke, or it's become like a popular culture joke, but no, for real, this series is very much about a group of preteen adolescent kids who kind of by circumstance get conscripted into a war, and it is sort of about the damage done to child soldiers who have this pressure put on them. So yeah, just so you know, the jokes about this being pretty awful in places aren't really jokes. Yes, but definitely ask Matt some questions about the Animals of Farthing Wood, because the night after I did the first YouTube live stream of this, I believe he, stayed awake and then couldn't fall asleep as he was trying to remember all of the ways the characters die in the Animals of Farthing Wood. So, yeah. Pretty much, it's probably safe to assume that a lot of content warnings apply to any given chapters of the Animorphs books. If you have any specific or particular triggers that you would like me to note, I do usually know what's coming up, so I can certainly communicate with you if you have some triggers that you would like to be alerted to ahead of time, whether to brace yourself or to avoid them. I think in the section we're about to read today, there is a pretty creeptastic cop. So if you don't have the spoons for dealing with a fictional police officer behaving badly, then, you may not enjoy this tonight. Just so you know. Oh, yeah, Watership Down. God. Okay. Yeah, just thought I'd mention. Where we left off, a couple of the kids were just trying out their morphing powers for the first time. So Tobias had morphed his cat, Dude, and Jake has just morphed his golden retriever, Homer. And yeah, they're getting used to the way when you're in the morph, you actually do have the brain of the animal. So you still have your human mind, but the brain that is operating your human mind is a dog brain. So you have all of the instincts and distractions of the animal. Chapter 10. I called all the others on the phone after I got done morphing back into my normal body. Tobias took off on his own, saying he'd hook up with us later at Cassie's farm. I was on the kitchen phone with Cassie when Tom came in. "Oh, there you are," he said. I covered the mouthpiece. "Yeah, Tobias said you were looking for me before?" "I just wanted you to shut your dog up," Tom said. He turned a chair around backward and straddled it. I hesitated. For some reason, I didn't want to talk to Cassie with Tom listening in. "I'll just see you there in a couple of hours, okay?" I told Cassie. I hung up. I looked over at Tom. He's bigger than me, even though I'm not exactly small. His hair is darker, almost black, while mine is brown. I had always trusted him. He wasn't like a lot of guys who pound on their younger brother. We were always kind of close. At least until the last year or so. Somehow, we just weren't spending as much time together. Partly it was that he was involved in this club called The Sharing. They did all this stuff together, so he was busy a lot of the time. The thing is, Tom should have been the very first person I told about all the stuff that had happened. But as I was sitting there watching him munch toast, I just had this feeling that said, no, this has to be a secret, even from Tom. Instead, I told him the other thing I was afraid to tell him. I didn't make the team, I said. "What team?" he asked. He looked puzzled. "What team? The basketball team. Your old team." "Oh, too bad," he said. "Too bad?" I repeated. I could not believe how little he seemed to care. "It's just sports," he said. He munched another big bite of toast. Just sports? I couldn't stop repeating what he said. Tom saying sports were no big deal? No way. He lived for sports. Yeah, I guess I just don't have your total skill. He shrugged. Well, I quit the team anyway, a couple of days ago. I practically fell off my chair. You quit? You quit the team? And you didn't even talk to me about it? What's the deal? I didn't say anything because I knew you and Dad would make a big thing out of it. Look, there are more important things than throwing balls through hoops, he said. He had this mysterious look in his eyes. I figured he meant girls were the more important thing. Besides, he added, we do much cooler stuff at the sharing. Maybe you should join up. I was stunned. Obviously, Tom and I were further apart than I had realized. When we were done talking, I headed outside to mow the lawn. I mow the lawn every Saturday. It's my major chore. That and taking out the trash, which I hate, because we have to do all this recycling stuff. When I was finally done mowing and trimming and raking, I hopped on my bike and took off. I had arranged with everyone to hook up at Cassie's farm. It isn't exactly a normal farm, although it had been in the old days, and they do still have horses and a cow. But now the big red main barn is the wildlife rehabilitation clinic. Cassie's father runs it. They take in any kind of injured animal except pet-type animals. There are always lots of birds, along with squirrels and deer and skunks and so on. Sometimes they get a bobcat or a fox or even a wolf. Cassie's mom is a vet too, but she works at the gardens. That's this huge amusement park that also has a zoo, or I guess they call it a wildlife park. Luckily, Cassie really loves animals. It would have been hard having her parents if she didn't really love animals. Me, I have a dog. Tobias has a cat. Cassie has everything from porcupines to polar bears. Convenient. By the time I got there, Marco, Tobias, and Rachel were already waiting outside the barn. Rachel had her face turned up to catch the tanning rays of the sun. Cassie wasn't there yet. I figured she was doing chores. She has tons of work to do around there. Hey, guys, I said. Rachel opened her eyes and immediately thrust a newspaper at me. Look, she said, pointing to an article. I started to read the article. It wasn't very long. It said that police claimed there had been a disturbance in the construction site the night before. It said several people had called, claiming they'd seen flying saucers landing there, followed by bright lights. Cool, I said, looking up. So the cops know about it now. That's a relief. Keep reading, Rachel said. The article went on to say that the police had arrived on the scene and found a group of teenagers playing with fireworks. The teenagers had run away. Fireworks were discovered at the scene. The police spokesman had laughed at the reports of flying saucers. It was just a bunch of kids playing where they shouldn't have been, he said. There were definitely no flying saucers. People shouldn't be so quick to believe nonsense. But this is a total lie, I said. Ding, ding, ding! Correct answer! Johnny, tell our contestant what he's won, Marco said. Did you see the last part? Rachel pressed. I read the last sentence. It froze me up good, I can tell you. Police were offering a reward for information on the teenagers. They're looking for us, Marco said. Why would the police why would they lie? I wondered aloud, but the answer was pretty obvious. Marco laughed his sardonic laugh. Let's see, Captain Brilliant. Would it be because the cops are controllers? Probably not all the cops, Tobias pointed out. If the police have been infiltrated by the controllers, who knows how many others have too? Rachel asked. Teachers, people in the government, the newspaper, and the TV? Math teachers for sure, Marco joked. We all looked around nervously, like we expected to find ourselves surrounded by controllers. I tried to tell myself it was all a dream, Rachel said. Been there, I said. For a while, no one said anything. We all felt the same terrible feeling, like we were all alone. Like suddenly we were dealing with stuff that was way, way, way over our heads. Marco spoke first. Look, why do we have to deal with this? I say we just forget it. We never talk about it. We never morph. We just deal with our own lives. Tobias and Rachel both looked at me. They were waiting for me to argue with Marco. Marco, I halfway agree with you, I started to say. Suddenly, Marco just went ballistic. We could get killed, he yelled. Don't you get it? You saw what happened to the Andalite. I mean, this is radical stuff, Jake. This is for real. Real. We could all get killed. Tobias was looking at Marco with this sideways look, like he thought maybe Marco was some kind of coward. I knew better. Marco had his reasons. Marco shook his head. In a quiet voice, he said, Look, I think these controllers are jerks, but if something happened to me, my dad, he wouldn't be able to handle it. 2 years ago, Marco's mom died. She drowned. They never even found her body. Marco's dad lost it big time. He totally fell apart. He quit his job as an industrial engineer because he couldn't handle being around other people. Now he was working the night shift as a janitor, making barely enough to support Marco. He spent his days sleeping or watching TV with the sound off. You can all think I'm a weasel if you want, Marco said. I don't care. But if I get killed or something, my dad will flat out die. He's only hanging in there because of me. I wondered if I should pat him on the back or something. But if I had, Marco, being Marco, would have just said something sarcastic. There's Cassie, Rachel said, shielding her eyes and looking off across the open field. A horse galloping across the green. Its black mane was flying in the warm breeze. I didn't see any rider. The horse slowed, trotting closer, and suddenly I had a strange feeling about the horse. Cassie and I have been here for a while, Rachel said by way of explanation. She's really good at this. Look how fast she can do it. The horse nickered softly. Then the animal began to melt. The big brown eyes became slightly smaller. The long muzzle became a human mouth. A thing that was part horse and part Cassie smiled at us with big horse teeth and said, Hey kids. Marco suddenly sat down, very hard. He had never seen morphing. It's cool, I said, trying to sound very relaxed. It's just Cassie. I decided I'd better be a gentleman and look away. After all, when Tobias and I had morphed, we'd kind of morphed right out of our clothes. But I noticed that Cassie had emerged from the horse. I noticed that Cassie had emerged from the horse she was wearing. Nope, that's not it. But I noticed as Cassie emerged from the horse that she was wearing a skin-tight blue outfit. One of those outfits girls wear to do aerobics. I watched and saw something beautiful happen. For just a few seconds, she stayed half horse and half human. She reminded me of the Andalite. I realized it was deliberate. Cassie was controlling the way she morphed. Geez, Rachel, I said. You're right. Cassie is good. Suddenly, we heard the sound of tires on gravel. We all spun around. Down the gravel and dirt road came a single black and white car. "The cops!" Tobias cried. Chapter 11. "Cassie, morph, now!" I snapped. The police car was coming fast. "We do not want to have to explain a half-horse, half-person." "Which way should I morph?" Cassie wailed. "Horse or human?" Ah, yes, but in a hoarse voice. "Which way should I morph?" Cassie wailed. "Horse or human?" She reared up slightly on her hind legs. I knew what was happening. She was fighting the horse's urge to panic. "Human, human, human," I said. "Everybody, stand in front of her." The police car squealed to a stop, sending the gravel flying. A single policeman stepped out. I waved at him. "Morning," he said. "You kids, hiding something?" I wanted to look over my shoulder and see what kind of shape Cassie was in, but that would have been a mistake. "Hiding something?" I repeated. "Step aside, all of you," he ordered. We did, revealing Cassie, fully human. The policeman looked puzzled, but then he shrugged. I breathed a huge sigh of relief. "Can we help you, officer?" Rachel asked in her best responsible voice. "We're making some inquiries," he said, still looking at Cassie like something must be wrong with her. "We're looking for some kids who were shooting off fireworks on a construction site across from the mall last night." Suddenly, Marco started coughing. "Something the matter with him?" the policeman asked. "Nope," I said. "Nothing wrong with him." "We want these kids," the policeman said. "We want them real bad. See, it was dangerous what they did. Could have been someone hurt. So we want to find those kids." Suddenly I knew. He was one of them. The policeman was a controller. I looked at his face. It seemed normal, but inside his head was a creature from another planet, an evil parasitic slug. Just behind those normal, human-looking eyes, something vile lurked. "I don't know anything about it," I lied. He looked at me real close, and I began to sweat. "Hey, you know what?" he said. "You look familiar." "You look like a young man I know named Tom." "He's my brother," I said. I was trying not to let my voice go weird, but I just couldn't forget the fact. Sorry, Matt, I may need you to feed the little monsters. Yeah, oh yeah, you can hear him. Okay. Yeah, he's loud. Matt is harvesting our homegrown lettuce to feed the squeak pit. Yeah, homegrown lettuce. Thank you.
You know where it is, buddy.
Thank you. Sorry for the musical interlude. Was provided by Utnapishtim. "He's my brother," I said. I was trying not to let my voice go weird, but I just couldn't forget the fact that it wasn't really some normal human cop I was talking to. It was a Yerk. This wasn't even human anymore. Not really. It was a human controller. The human brain was totally enslaved. "Tom's your brother, eh? Well, he's a good kid. I know him from the sharing. I'm one of the adult supervisors. Great group, the sharing. You should come to a meeting." "Yeah, Tom invited me already," I said. "We have a lot of fun." "Yeah," I repeated. Well, you call me if you hear anything about those kids in the construction site. I should warn you. They may come up with some wild story to conceal their guilt, but you're too smart to believe a bunch of crazy lies, aren't you? He's a regular genius, Marco said. Finally, the policeman took off. Okay, rule number 1, Rachel announced firmly. We don't do anything to attract attention. We have to be secret about everything, especially morphing. Cassie looked embarrassed. Yeah, it was stupid of me. It's just, man, it's so amazing running like that, out in the open spaces, running and running. How did you manage to morph with clothing? I asked. When Tobias and I did it, well, let's just say it's a good thing neither of you girls was around. It took some practice, Cassie said, and it can only be tight clothing. I tried it with a coat on. The coat got shredded. I don't know what we'll do in the winter. That's not going to be a problem, Marco said firmly, because there isn't going to be any more morphing. Maybe Marco's right, Rachel said. This is too big for us. We're just kids. We need to find someone important to tell this to, someone we can trust. We can't trust anyone, Tobias said flatly. Anyone could be a controller. We tell the wrong person, we're all dead, and the whole world will be doomed. I don't want to stop morphing, Cassie said. Do you realize all we could do with this power? We could communicate with animals, maybe, help save endangered species. Humans may be the next endangered species, Cassie, Tobias said quietly. What do you say, Jake? Cassie asked. Me? I shrugged. I don't know. Marco's right. We could all get killed. Rachel's right. This is too major for a bunch of kids. I hesitated. I didn't like what I was about to say. But Tobias is right too. I mean, the whole world is in danger, and we can't trust anyone. So what do we do? Rachel demanded. Hey, it's not up to me to decide, I said hotly. Let's take a vote, Rachel said. Hooray for the nightmare of democracy. I vote we try to live long enough to get driver's licenses, Marco said. I vote we do what the Andalite said. We fight, Tobias said. You've never even been in a fight, Marco sneered. You can't handle the punks at school. Suddenly now you want to kick butt on that Visser 3 freakazoid? Tobias said nothing, but a blush spread up his neck. I vote with Tobias, Rachel said, giving Marco a dirty look. I wish we could dump all this on someone else, but we can't. That's book number 22, The Solution, so hang tight. Let's think it over for a while, Cassie said. This is a big decision. I mean, it's not like we're deciding whether to wear jeans or a skirt. I was relieved. Thank goodness for Cassie. Yeah, let's wait a while, I agreed. In the meantime, no one say anything to anyone. We just go back to normal life. There was a smirk on Marco's face. He thought he'd won, but I wasn't so sure. Tobias was still blushing. He sent a secret, grateful look to Rachel. Marco and I took off toward my house again, trying to act normal. We talked about the baseball season. We talked about who was going to slaughter who in Dead Zone 5, which is the CD-ROM game we were going to play on my computer. By the time we reached my house, we'd run out of stuff to talk about. We played Dead Zone for a while. Neither of us did very well. Face it, games just weren't all that interesting anymore. My mind was totally not there. Tom came in after a while. Hey, you guys, he said. Can I give that a try? It had been months since Tom had done anything with me like play a game. Sure. Marco moved over and gave Tom his control stick. We played for a few minutes, and Tom did pretty well. But then it was like he got bored or something. He gave the control back to Marco and just sat back and watched. You guys hear about all that stuff going on with the construction site last night? He asked me. Marco jerked in surprise. What stuff? I said. It was in the newspaper, Tom said casually. And they said some kids were shooting off fireworks. A bunch of morons who live around there decided it was flying saucers or something. He laughed. Flying saucers, right. Marco and I both laughed, too. Yeah, and it was just these kids playing with fireworks, Tom said. Uh-huh, I said. I was trying very hard to concentrate on the game. You were out at the mall last night, weren't you? Tom asked me. Uh-huh. Did you come back through the construction site? I shook my head. No way. Didn't see any kids hanging around there, maybe? Nope. It's not like I'd get them in trouble, Tom said. I mean, I think it's kind of cool. They're just shooting off fireworks and they get all these people terrified of flying saucers. Uh-huh. Flying saucers, he said. He laughed again. Only complete dips believe that kind of stuff. He leaned close. You don't believe in that, do you? Aliens and spaceships and little green men from Mars? I wanted to say no, none of them had been little or green. But I just said, no way. Tom nodded and stood up. Cool. You know, Jake, I feel like we haven't been hanging around much lately. I guess not, I agreed. That's too bad, he said. He snapped his fingers like he'd just had an idea. You know, you should join the sharing. Marco, too. Why should we join? Marco asked. Tom just grinned. I gotta go, he said. He gave me a playful punch on the shoulder. Catch you guys later. And don't forget, let me know if you hear anything about those kids at the construction site. He left. Marco looked at me. Jake, he's one of them. What? Tom. Tom is one of them. Your brother is a controller. Sorry. Chapter 12. I swung my fist and caught Marco in the side of the head. He jumped back and I swung again, but Marco was quick. He dodged my second swing, and I slipped and went down. Marco snatched the bedspread off my bed, threw it over me to tangle up my arms, and sat on me. Jake, quit acting like a stupid jerk, he said. I was trying to grab him, but he had me pretty good. Take that back, I yelled. Not likely, Marco said. You think it's just a coincidence he's suddenly all interested in what happened at the construction site? I knew it looked bad, even while I was struggling to get free to kick Marco's butt. I had this sudden flash about the smell I'd noticed on Tom when I was morphed into a dog, and there was that laugh I'd heard at the site. But no, this was Tom, my big brother. Tom would never, ever have let those slimy creeps into his head. Never. I'll let you up if you'll calm down, Marco said. Look, maybe I'm wrong, okay? I stopped struggling, and Marco let me up. You have to admit, Jake, it doesn't look good. Tom is not one of them, okay? That's final, I said. Whatever, Marco said. Just don't punch me again, because I might have to hit you back. Just then, I heard this fluttering noise at my window, like someone beating on it very softly. I went to the window, followed by Marco. There was a bird there, some kind of huge bird, like an eagle or a hawk, beating its wings against the window. Let me in, all right? I can't hover here forever. Marco's eyes went wide. He'd heard it too. I opened the window, and the bird flew straight in. It landed on my dresser. It was almost 2 feet long, mostly brown, with gnarled talons and a sharp, hooked beak. It's some kind of eagle or something, Marco said. A red-tailed hawk, actually, Tobias said. Is that you, Tobias? Marco demanded. I thought we weren't going to do any more of this morphing. I never agreed to that. Well, morph back, Tobias, I said. You know what the Andalite said. Never stay in any form for more than 2 hours. Tobias hesitated. He sorry. Tobias hesitated. He tilted his hawk's head and peered at me with an incredibly concentrated gaze. At last, he hopped over onto my bed. Let me tell you something, it is beyond weird watching feathers turn into skin. The brown feathers ran together and merged and turned pink. It was like the feathers were melting, like they had turned into wax and were being heated up. The beak disappeared quickly, and lips grew out of it. The talons split into 5 and became toes. Halfway through the process of changing, Tobias was a lump, half pink, half brown, with feather-like patterns still visible on his back and chest. His face His face was small and mostly human, except that he still had those sharp, alert hawk's eyes. 2 tiny, shriveled arms protruded from the front of his chest, with fingers like a baby's. All in all, it was a pretty disgusting sight. But the human DNA asserted itself over the hawk's, and he became more normal. About 3 minutes after he'd started the change, there was a completely normal Tobias sitting naked on the end of my bed. I haven't figured out how to morph clothes yet, like Cassie, he said sheepishly. Can I borrow some? I loaned him a pair of pants and a shirt, but my shoes were all the wrong size. That was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, Tobias said. His whole face was glowing. I was riding the thermals. What's a thermal? I asked. That's when there's warm air rising up from the ground. It forms this cushion under your wings. You can just float up there, like a mile up. You just surf the thermals. You guys have got to do it. It's the best thing ever. Tobias, how on earth did you get a hawk morph? I demanded. There's an injured hawk right there in Cassie's barn, he said. There's this cool osprey too, but I decided on the hawk. How did you fly if the hawk you morphed was injured? I wondered. Marco shook his head pityingly. Jake, do you pay any attention in biology class? DNA has nothing to do with some injury. The DNA wasn't broken, just a wing. I ignored Marco. You're lucky Cassie's dad didn't catch you, I said to Tobias. He's so depressed, Tobias commented. Who's depressed? Cassie's dad? No, the hawk. I mean, no, the hawk. I think he knows they aren't trying to hurt him or anything, but he can't stand being cooped up in there while his wing heals. Tobias's eyes darkened. It's terrible when birds have to be locked up in cages. They should be free. Yeah, free the birds, Marco commented sarcastically. I'll get the bumper stickers printed up. You wouldn't have that attitude if you'd been up there with me, Tobias said angrily. It was cool being a cat and all, but a hawk? It's just total, absolute freedom. I had never seen Tobias so happy. Tobias has a pretty lousy home life. Thinking about it, I suddenly had this feeling. I repeated the warning. No more than 2 hours in any morph, right? You keep track of the time, right? Tobias smiled. Yeah, I don't have a watch or anything, but with hawk eyes, you can actually see the hands of someone else's watch when they're half a mile below you. It's like being Superman. It's like being Superman. You can fly, plus you have supervision. Now he's Superman, Marco muttered. I was looking around. I guess I thought I might be able to see something from the air, Tobias said. I was looking for something that might be a yerk pool. The phrase sounded vaguely familiar. The phrase sounded vaguely familiar. I remembered Visser 3 saying something about yerk pools. What's a yerk pool? I asked Tobias. It's where the yerks live in their natural state. Every 3 days, a yerk has to leave his host body and go into the yerk pool to soak up nutrients, especially chondrona rays. Marco and I exchanged a suspicious look. Neither of us knew any of this. At the end, Tobias explained, when the Andalite told us all to run for it, I stayed behind for a few seconds. I guess maybe I was too scared even to run. I shook my head. I knew better. Tobias just hadn't wanted to leave the Andalite alone. I think I think maybe the Andalite meant even more to Tobias than to the rest of us. Anyway, he gave me visions, I guess you'd call them. Pictures, information, a lot of it, all at once, all jumbled. I haven't even started to sort it all out, but I do know about the yerk pools and the Kendrona. Marco held up his hand, silencing Tobias. Let me check the door, he said. He went to my door and peeked out into the hallway. All clear, he announced. Tobias gave Marco a questioning look. Tom, Marco said. He's one of them. Don't make me hurt you, I warned him angrily. Tom is not a controller. Either way, we should be careful, Tobias said. He lowered his voice. The Kendrona is a device that produces Kendrona particles. See, it's like this little portable version of the Yerk's own home sun. The Yerks need Kendrona particles to live, like humans need vitamins or whatever. The Kendrona particles are beamed from wherever the Kendrona is and concentrated in the Yerk pool. Once every 3 days, every Yerk has to leave his host and go into the Yerk pool. They soak up the particles and then they re-enter the host's body. What does this have to do with you flying around playing Superman? I asked. Well, it seems dumb now, but I was thinking maybe I could see the Yerk pool. He made a rueful smile. Saw a lot of swimming pools and some ponds. You get up there and you realize there are ponds and lakes and streams everywhere, but I didn't see anything special. And what if you found some Yerk pool? Then what? Marco demanded. Then we'd blow it up, Tobias said. Wrong, Marco said. We decided not to get involved in this. No, we decided not to decide yet, I said. Well, I've decided, Tobias said. Suddenly the wimp is the hero, Marco sneered. This time Tobias didn't blush. Maybe I just found something worth fighting for, Marco. You didn't even fight for yourself, Marco said. That was before, Tobias said softly. Before the Andalite. Before he died. Sorry. That was before, Tobias said softly. Before the Andalite. Before he died trying to save us. I can't let that go. I can't let him die for nothing. So whatever you guys decide, I'm going to fight. Chapter 13. We find the Yerk pool, Tobias said. And when we do, we blow it up and kill every one of those evil slugs. I expected Marco to start yelling, but Marco is pretty smart. He could tell that Tobias had reached me, and his talk about the He could tell that Tobias had reached me with his talk about the Andalite, so he just smiled, a little sneakily. Remember that cop today? The one that was so interested in finding out whoever was at the construction site? The cop was probably a controller? What about him? I said. Well, let's see. He invites you to join. Well, let's see. He invites you to join the sharing, and now along comes Tom, and suddenly he is very interested in whatever happened at the construction site. And guess what? Tom also invites you to join the sharing. Tobias nodded in agreement. Maybe the sharing is an organization for controllers. Marco smiled. He's my best friend and all, but sometimes Marco makes me really mad. We're pretty sure the cop is a controller, and I don't care what you say, Jake. I think Tom is too. So here's the deal. You want to get into this fight against the Yerks? Marco asked me. Fine. Let's see how much you want to do it when it turns out it's your own brother you have to destroy. That stopped me cold. It's not exactly some video game, is it? Marco said. This is reality. You don't know anything about reality, Jake. Nothing bad has ever really happened to you. You have this perfect family like I used to have. His voice cracked a little. He never talked about his mom's death. I realized he was right. I didn't know about reality. Not the way reality had happened to Marco and to Tobias. So maybe we just walk away from this, Marco said. Let someone else fight this fight. Sorry about the Andalite, but I've got enough death in my family. No, I said, surprising myself. The Andalite gave us the morphing power for a reason. It wasn't just for the fun of being a dog or a horse or a bird. He hoped we would fight. Then maybe Tom is the enemy, Marco said. Maybe it's your own brother you'll end up destroying. Yes, I said. My throat felt all tight. Maybe that's what will happen. Maybe not. But the first step is to find out more. And I think maybe the way to do that is to check out this meeting of the sharing. Tonight. I'll call the others. Anyone wants to come? Cool. You want to stay out of it, Marco? That's cool too. He hesitated. He sent Tobias an angry look, but he said, Okay, it's just a meeting, right? We go and see. I'm in for that. I called the others. Rachel agreed quickly. Cassie had to think about it for a little while, but she agreed too. I told Tom we were interested in attending the meeting. Me and Marco, Rachel and Cassie. We'd already decided Tobias would be there too, only in a different way. Tonight's a great meeting to come to, Tom said enthusiastically. We're having a bonfire on the beach. You know, hanging out, playing games and stuff. We play night volleyball, which is so funny because half the time the guys can't even see the ball. It's great. It's the best organization. You're going to love it. Listening to him, it sure didn't sound like the sharing was connected to the Yerks. You couldn't really picture Visser 3 or a bunch of Taxon playing volleyball. I was thinking maybe we were all just nuts. The sharing was probably like some new kind of co-ed Boy Scouts or something. It wasn't that far to the beach, so we decided not to drive there with Tom. We walked. Tobias walked partway there with us. Then he stepped behind a dark dune as we got close to the shore. A few minutes later, we saw a hawk take flight. There aren't many thermals at night, so he had to work pretty hard to get altitude. But then I guess he found a decent enough updraft because he soared up and away until he disappeared. I have got to try that, Cassie said. It looks wonderful. Yeah, I agreed. Ahead, the bonfire burned bright on the dark beach. Ahead, the bonfire burned bright on the dark beach. People were all around it, playing, talking, eating. Kids from school, adults, people I didn't know, others I did. Were they all controllers, I wondered? How could I even know? And was my own brother one of them? Hmm. After about an hour of hanging out there on the beach, I was sure I was nuts. There was no way these guys were aliens. We played some volleyball, me and Tom together on one team. We ate the barbecue ribs they had. I mean, it was just like this normal, good time. The sand was still warm, the night air was chilly, but near the fire it was nice. Now you see why I enjoy this? Tom asked me. It's cool, I said. I looked around at all the people having fun. I didn't realize it was so much fun. Well, that's not all it is, Tom said. I mean, it's more than just fun. The sharing can do all kinds of things for you once you're a full member. How'd you get to be a full member? I asked. He smiled mysteriously. Oh, that will come later. First, you become an associate member. Later, the leaders will decide whether to ask you to become a full member. Once you become a full member, the whole world changes. At that moment, something weird happened. I was looking at Tom, and he was smiling at me, but then his face kind of twitched. His head started to pull to one side. His head started to pull to one side, like he was trying to shake his head, only he couldn't quite do it. For just a split second, there was a look in his eyes, scared or something. He was looking right at me, and it was like some different person, some scared person, was looking out of those same eyes. Then he was back to normal, or what looked like normal. I have to go for a while now, he said. The full members have a separate meeting. You guys stay here and have fun. Have some more of that barbecue. It's great, isn't it? With that, he was gone into the night. I felt like I had swallowed barbed wire. Marco and Cassie came over. They had they had just finished playing frisbee in the surf with some other kids. Marco was laughing. Okay, he said. I admit it. I was wrong. These are just normal people having a good time, and Tom is not a controller. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Marco was wrong. I knew what I had seen in Tom's eyes. I knew what I had seen in Tom's eyes. He was trying to warn me. Somehow he had managed to gain control of his face for just a second before the yerk in his head had crushed him. Tom, the real Tom, not the yerk slug in his brain, had tried to warn me. I think probably one more chapter. Chapter 14. They're all going off to a separate meeting, I said. All the full members. I'd sure like to know what goes on in that meeting. I struggled to sound normal, but my insides were churning. I saw people heading that way, Rachel pointed. Let's see if we can get close, I said. What's going on? Marco asked. I thought we just decided everything was normal here. It was Cassie who answered him. Nothing is normal here, she said. Can't you feel it? She shivered. All these so-called full members, they're all being so perfectly nice, so perfectly helpful. They're so perfectly normal, it's abnormal. And all the time, their eyes are following you, watching you like a hungry dog watching a bone. Creepy, Rachel agreed. Creepy, Rachel agreed. Like if you took cheerleaders, combined them with gym teachers, and made them all drink 10 cups of coffee. They are all just a little too happy, aren't they? Marco admitted. People keep telling me about how all their problems disappeared once they became a full member of the sharing. It's like some cult or something. It also sounds like a lot of youth groups, doesn't it? I'm getting into that secret meeting, I said. I had to know. I had to be dead sure. Let's get away from the fire, over behind that lifeguard stand. How are you getting into the meeting? Marco asked. They won't worry about some stray dog that's walking along the beach, I said. Some stray. Oh, Marco said. Good idea, Cassie said. I'd do it too, but the only morph I can do is a horse. They would notice a horse. I checked to see that no one could see us. I waved over my head. A few seconds later, Tobias came swooping silently out of the starlit sky. He landed on the lifeguard stand. What's up? The full members are off in some private get-together, I told him. Do you know where they are? Of course. With these eyes, I can see the mice scampering through the dune grass. Nice, plump, tasty-looking things. Tobias, get a grip. Don't start eating mice just because you're in a hawk's body. What's next? Roadkill? He didn't say anything. Maybe he was offended at my suggestion that he would ever eat roadkill. Or worse, maybe he wasn't offended. Where are the full members? I asked. About 100 yards down the beach. There's a little bowl-like area formed by the dunes. There are people posted all around, though, like guards. I nodded. Good job, Tobias. Good job, Tobias. You've been in that body for more than an hour now. You need to morph back. No, I'll keep watch from above for a while longer, he said. No, Tobias, I said sharply. You need to morph back. You've done what we needed you to do. There is that little problem of I don't exactly have any clothes on. Marco has your clothes in a bag. Rachel and Cassie will turn away while you morph. Cassie grinned. I am going to have to teach you boys how to morph clothing. Still, Tobias hesitated. I hate changing back. It's like going back into a prison or something. I hate it when I don't have my wings. Tobias, you can always return to your hawk morph later, Rachel reassured him. Now come on, both of you. I'll look the other way, so your delicate boy modesty isn't offended. I took a deep breath. It was only my second morph. It still seemed totally ridiculous that I was even thinking about becoming a dog. But as I concentrated, I could begin to feel the itchiness and the squirmy feeling as Homer's DNA combined with the Andalite technology and began to change me. At the same time, I could see fingers growing from the ends of Tobias's wings. Keep a grip on your human side, Cassie warned me. We can't have you go off chasing cats or whatever. You need to focus hard on staying in control. I started to say, yes, I know, but it came out of, "Orf, orf." I was already too changed to make normal human speech. I thought my answer instead. Yes, I know, Cassie. Don't worry. But I do worry, she said softly. I nuzzled her hand with my cold nose, and she patted my head. I set off across the sand. Cassie had been right to warn me. The dunes, the surf, the low chirping of seabirds and their hidden nests. All of it was so perfect for distracting my dog mind. I heard something breathing in the seagrass, and then it broke and ran. I was off after it before I could even think. It ran and I chased. I think it may have been a chipmunk or something. I never could be sure, because it found a hole and went diving in. I dug frantically into the sand for a while before my human brain realized, whoa, Jake, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Stop it. I made myself walk toward the meeting. I could hear the murmur of voices. I started to creep closer, then realized that was dumb. Dogs don't creep around. They just walk or run. If I went around acting like spy dog, that would make people pay attention. So I wandered along, like any dog out for an evening stroll along the beach. My tongue lolled out of my mouth. My tail wagged occasionally. The only thing I had to be careful of was not to let Tom see me too clearly. After all, I did look exactly like Homer. Basically, I was Homer. I approached the edge of the area. There were high dunes all around. About 20 or 30 people were standing together. Unfortunately, with my weak dog eyes, I couldn't see them very well in the darkness. But I could hear them. I could hear them amazingly well. Sounds that I would barely have noticed with my human hearing were as loud as a boombox set on 9. And I could smell. It's funny about smell. As a human, you don't really get into it. Sorry. It's funny about smell. As a human, you just don't really get into it. But when I laid back and let my dog abilities come up, smell became as good as sight. Different, but just as good for some things. I heard Tom's voice, and I smelled a subtle combination of things that meant he was not too far away. There was a man on guard, but all he did was look down at me, then look away. No one cares about a stray dog. I was beginning to realize why the Andalite had given us the power to morph. There are things you can do as an animal that you could never do as a human. The members all seemed to be waiting for someone to arrive. I heard Tom say, "He should be here soon. Wait here till he comes." Oh, sorry. Wait, here he comes. There was a stirring, muttering sound. I heard footsteps approach. I moved closer, but stayed out of the light. "Everyone, quiet. We have problems," the voice said. The voice! I knew that voice. It was the same voice that had been at the construction site. It was the voice that had said, "Just save the head. Bring that to me and we can identify it." I crept a little closer. I had to look hard to see him with my dog sight. But then, when he turned just the right way, I saw him. I recognized him. It was someone I knew. Someone I saw every day at school. None other than Assistant Principal Chapman. My assistant principal was a controller. "Item 1. We still have not found the brats who were at the construction site," Chapman said. His voice was hard. "I want them found. Visser 3 wants them found. Does anyone have any clues?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then I heard a second familiar voice. "It could have been anyone," Tom said. "But it might be the one who's my brother, Jake. I know he goes through the construction site sometimes. That's why I brought it. Sorry. I know he goes through the construction site sometimes. That's why I brought him here tonight. So we could either make him ours or kill him." And that was the end of a chapter. It is just past 8 o'clock, and I think my reading will probably get more struggle butt from here anyway. So we'll probably call it a night. Oh, is that a wow okay to that being the end of a chapter? Because the next one is pretty short. Okay, yeah, well, we'll call it a night there. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me again. And yeah, I'm having some fun just spending an hour a week reading. So I will hopefully see you again next week. Good night for now.